This video is about the relationship between special angle pairs like these. We'll be talking about corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, consecutive interior angles, linear pairs, and vertical angles. But first of all, complementary. Two angles are complementary if they add up to 90 degrees. So if one of the angles is 72 degrees, and I want to find the other, I should be able to simply subtract from 90. So if I take 90 minus 72, then that should give me the other angle. Alright, supplementary means they add to 180 degrees. So if one angle is 72, I should be able to find the other by subtracting from 180. So if I do 180 minus 72, that'll give me the other angle, which is 108 degrees. The angle pair shown in problem number 3 is called a linear pair. If you have a straight line, you know that it's going to be 180 degrees total. So if you take a straight line and you split it up into two angles, you know they will be supplementary. You know they will add up to 180 degrees. So that's what's happening right here. You can see that we have a straight line and is being split up into two angles. So these have to add up to 180. They are supplementary. So you can make an equation out of that. If they add up to 180, that means that 4x minus 10 plus 2x plus 28 has to equal 180. Combining like terms, I'm going to have 6x, all right, putting those two together, and then 28 minus 10 is 18 is equal to 180. Then subtracting 18 from both sides. So that is 162. And then you need to divide both sides by 6. So that's 27. Alright, so that's it for problem number 3. Again, let's make sure we're getting that vocabulary in here. This type of angle is called a linear pair. Now, angles like these are called vertical angles. And we know that vertical angles are always equal. They are congruent. So for that reason, 4x minus 10 should equal 2x plus 28. So we would subtract 2x from both sides. That will leave 2x minus 10 is equal to 28. Then we would add 10 to both sides. So that's going to leave 2x is equal to 38. And then we would divide both sides by 2. That's going to leave x is equal to 19. Alright, in number 5 it's time to start talking about some of these angle pairs to which I was referring a moment ago. So let's see what we have. So first we have angle 1 and angle 8. Oh, we were just speaking about these. Angle 1 and angle 8, this is going to be another linear pair because of the way you see they form a straight line together that's being split up into two angles. That is a linear pair. Alright, next we have angle 3 and angle 7. Okay, so here's angle 3 and here is angle 7. Okay, as you look at these, we've got these two lines, P and Q. They're being cut by a third line called a transversal. Notice how these angles are between the lines. So these angles are in the interior. Angles like 1 and 8 and 4 and 5 are in the exterior. So 3 and 7 are interior. Because they are on opposite sides of the line, we call them alternate interior. So that's the name of this angle pair. Okay, don't abbreviate when you're doing vocabulary. Okay, next we're going to talk about angle 2 and angle 4. Okay, so angle 2 and angle 4 are like this. Alright, angles like this are called corresponding angles. One way to look at it is look at this group of 4. See how angle 2 is in the lower left-hand corner? And then look at this group of 4. See how angle 4 is also in the lower left-hand corner. So when you have two angles that are in the same position in their group, they are called corresponding angles. Okay, sometimes we talk about the letter F. If you can sort of make the letter F out of the angles, okay, see if you can stretch your imagination and see the F that I'm drawing. Of course it's backwards, but that's okay. If you can draw the letter F and the two angles are sort of in the corners of the F, then those are corresponding angles. It's another way to look at it. Okay, next we have angle 1 and angle 5. Okay. Here's angle 1 and here's angle 5. As I mentioned before, we have the two lines. These numbers, these angles are outside the lines. They're exterior. And because they are on opposite sides of the transversal, they're called alternate. So they're alternate exterior angles. Now for part B, we're going to start substituting numbers into this picture, and it will cause sort of a chain reaction. So you need to understand that the lines P and Q are not always parallel, but when they are parallel, that will cause a lot of angles to be congruent and a lot of other angles to be supplementary. So in this picture it's pretty obvious because some of the angles are clearly acute, and then meaning less than 90 degrees, and other angles seem to be obtuse. So the angles that look acute will all be congruent if the lines are parallel. The angles that look obtuse, like angle 1 and angle 7 and angle 3 and angle 5, they will all be congruent if the lines are parallel. Now if you pick one of each, if you pick an angle that looks acute like angle 2 and an angle that looks obtuse like angle 3, a pair like that will be supplementary if the lines are parallel. Okay, so if you give me one angle in this picture, you should be able to determine all of the angles if the lines are parallel. So for example, if angle 1 is 110 degrees, all right, if I know that this is 110 degrees, and if I know that the lines are parallel, then I should be able to find all of the other angles. Because that means all of the angles that look obtuse are all 110 degrees. So for example, angle 1 and angle 7 are 110 degrees. Okay, but that's going to be the same thing with angle 3 and angle 5. They will also be 110 degrees. Okay, and then we can switch over and look at the acute angles. Alright, these angles have to be supplementary. Alright, they form a linear pair, a straight line. So if this is 110, then angle 8, for example, must be 70 degrees because then it would add up to 180. And that means all of these acute looking angles must be 70 degrees. So angle 2 must be 70 degrees, angle 6 must be 70 degrees, and angle 4 must be 70 degrees. So we just, given one angle, we get them all. Okay, and here we're being asked just to fill in all of those angles we just found. Okay, so I just went ahead and filled in all of the angles that we just discussed. All right, but they're all in the picture. Okay, for part C, we are given an expression for the measure of angle 4 and for the measure of angle 8. And we're supposed to find the value of x and the measure of angle 2. Okay, well, it all starts with angle 4 and angle 8, so let's take a look at those. So here's angle 4, and here's angle 8. These are alternate exterior angles, so they are going to be congruent if the lines are parallel. Notice how they both look acute. So when they draw it to make it obvious which lines are acute and which lines are obtuse, then it makes it easy because all of the angles that look acute will be congruent if the lines are parallel. So we know that angle 4 and angle 8 should be congruent to each other. Their measures should be equal. So that's why I can take these two expressions and set them equal to each other. So I know that 12x should equal 10x plus 4. So I should be able to use this to solve for x. So for example, I can subtract 10x from both sides to get these together. So that's going to leave 2x is equal to 4, and then I divide by 2, and I come up with x is equal to 2. Okay, so that's half of what I'm supposed to find. So I found the value of x, but I also need to find the measure of angle 2. Okay, so x is 2. Let's go ahead and use x to find the measure of angle 4, for example. Alright, so the measure of angle 4 is 12x. And now we know that x is 2, so that means 12 times 2, which is 24. So the measure of angle 4 is 24 degrees. Okay, so keep that in mind. The measure of angle 4 is 24 degrees. So that means this is 24 degrees. So the question is, how does that compare with angle 2? Well, angle 4 and angle 2 are corresponding angles. so they will be congruent if the lines are parallel, which they are. So the measure of angle 2 will also be 24 degrees. And again, notice how they both look acute, so you know they should be congruent if the lines are parallel. Okay, so we're supposed to find the measure of angle 2, so we now know that the measure of angle 2 is going to also equal 24 degrees. Alright, so now we have both things that we were asked to find. Okay, now here on part D, they are talking about angle 3 and angle 2. So let's see how those are related. Alright, so here's angle 3 and here's angle 2. Alright, at a glance I can tell that these should be supplementary if the lines are parallel. Sure, the name of this angle pair is consecutive interior angles. Alright, see how they are between the lines and they're on the same side. That makes them consecutive interior. Now you could sit here and memorize that consecutive interior angles are supplementary, so they have to add up to 180. But again, when it's obvious that some angles look acute and some angles look obtuse, if I give you an acute angle and an obtuse angle, when the lines are parallel, those are going to be supplementary. Okay, so angle 2 and angle 3 should add up to 180. Okay, so the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 2 should equal 180. So that means 12x plus 10x plus 4 should equal 180. So combining like terms, that's going to give me 22x plus 4 is equal to 180. And then if I subtract 4 from both sides, that's going to give me 22x is equal to 176. And then I would have to divide both sides by 22. And that turns out to be 8. So x is 8. We're also supposed to find the measure of angle 7. Okay, so let's start by finding the measure of angle 3. Alright, the measure of angle 3 is equal to 12x. So that means the measure of angle 3 should equal 12 times 8. So the measure of angle 3 is going to be 96. Okay, but we are supposed to find the measure of angle 7. So the question is, how will that compare? Measure of angle 7. Okay, let's take a look at the picture. Well, angle 3 and angle 7 are alternate interior angles. If the lines are parallel, these should be congruent. So angle 7 should have the same measure. Also, notice how they both appear to be obtuse. So that's another shortcut to tell you that they should be equal. Okay, so angle 7 should also be 96 degrees. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Go ahead and click here in the red apple to watch the next video. Click in the green apple to subscribe, or click the yellow apple for the full playlist.